Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is the natural definition of sensorality? So what is at the forefront of my mind is I am an RN. That is not a registered nurse. That is a real neighbor. And as a real neighbor, I am prone to getting crescent-shaped anemia. And so I thought today would be a good place to start, topology versus geometry. And so right, to start, we have this irreducibility, syllability, the association of meaning to a syllable. When I said I'm an RN, a real neighbor, that's definitely what you thought of, right? And then when I said I have crescent-shaped anemia, that's also really what you thought of, right? And so, a little introduction for you, but topology versus geometry. We have this irreducibility of meaning, or we have this irreducibility of sound, then we have meaning, associations, things, processes, objects, situations associated to these sounds. Sounds produce words. You have some sort of structure which produces grammar to have consistency of transitioning from one word to the next, talking about things. And so we're kind of ultimately looking for this definition of what is sensorality. We have this fundamentality, the thing that is irreducible, the association of meaning to sound, and we have this geometric consequence that is represented in our letters, right? Sounds are produced by geometric things moving, physical objects in motion, and then we have shapes to represent those sounds, letters. And so what people say is, right, three-dimensional. You go into math class, we're going to solve something in 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 14 million dimensions. It's all kind of bullshit. Dimension doesn't really mean anything, right? You have directions, and they come in pairs. And so the most directional word you've been introduced to in science that you haven't really been taught is chirality. You have something that exists, and then inverts would be kind of like the first operation. The maximum inversion, the most different something can be, is an opposite. Right? And then you have in math class an inverse. Physically, the proton and the electron are inverses. And so, right, that dichotomy, that relationship of proton to electron, they both have one unit of charge. That is the fundamental consistency. And then the differing size, it's not 1-to-1. And so the chiral process, or the chirating process, has not been really geometrically articulated throughout science, throughout you going to school, but it's this inversion, something exists, it inverts opposition, that opposition stabilizes, and so we have this fundamental stability of 2, right, in directions, forward, backward, left, right, up, down. But the 3 units, right, 1, 1, 2, in the Fibonacci sequence, that 1 to 2, the reason you kind of add those sequences together, those elements, those numbers, is reflecting of chronological phase changes, stabilization events. And we have 2 of those, right? The Fibonacci sequence, and then the base of the natural log being E. And so I'm trying to, again, pull all of this stuff kind of together, but the point being is when people say you have 3 dimensions, that overall intuition is fine. It's not exactly true. You have this sort of fundamental stability of 2, this opposition that's complete, and then this open element, right? It's a third wheel, right? And you go on a date, you're with your friend, he's got a girlfriend, and you're just kind of sitting there by yourself, you're a third wheel. You have this dynamic between the proton and the electron. It's not the same size. So you have some sort of orbit, periodicity pulses. We'll get to some more of that stuff here in a second, but just what we have as opposition is not 1-to-1. In math class, you don't have bijections, you don't have isomorphisms, we've kind of went through that, but just overall the relationship of geometry to topology. We can completely solve topology today. We'll do it pretty quickly, might even start off with it, but why do we have 2 words, right? Both of the completing what I was saying was, like, all of the words you introduce or use are what conceptually you would say is 3-dimensional, but in reality it's this fundamental component, this completable aspect of opposition, and then leftover, remainder. And it's still like a fraction, right? It's still rational, right? It just has to terminate, right? You can do, 4 divided by 3 is 3 1/3, or 1 1/3, but it ends, it terminates. And so you still have this completion that's like it resolves, and then openness, which is still rational. And you have that manifested linguistically, and we're going through this process of analysis. And so within geometry, or again, geometry is the holistic word for shape. Topology is surface, and it's all the same thing, right? What is the shape of goosebumps, right? It's their little bubbles. Go look out on a curb and you're going to walk up on the sidewalk. People have little bubbles, like to give you grip, to give you traction, so you can walk if there's snow or whatever. Or just look at the ground, right? It's just a little sphere, right? All locality acts as spheres. Yeah, that's just true. But again, effectively, right, when you get goosebumps, that's all of topology, right? Literally the word topology, the study of top. Again, Jen Ouellette, my girlfriend, knows a lot about that. But moving on, right, if you look at goosebumps, or if you look at, again, if you just take a microscope and try to look at the atoms, you're always going to have this bumpy surface, endoplasmic reticulum, the rough ER. But overall, topology, what that word could mean is what is referenced by surface. And surface is all bumpy. It's all this, it's the same bubbly goosebumps, gravel road. It's all the same shape. And so topology is contained within geometry. Geometry is the word that references the overall physical shape, all of it. The stabilized component of two, which again, surface, right? You have your x, y, and then you have depth, right? Like the z-axis is kind of different in our directions. We have left, right, up, down, each one syllable, and we have forward, backward. And so that's that fundamental stability of two, left, right. That's one pair, up, down, one pair, forward, backwards. Use more syllability. And so what people call topology right now, all of that conceptualization could mean is the study of top, but like the top eye view, like looking down on something. Because remember, wherever you're at, you're on the surface of another sphere. So everything is like a bubble on the surface, these little goosebumps. That's what the shape of topology is completely. And then geometry is this overall shape of things. And so the reason I led off with my crescent-shaped anemia, because sickle cell, right, it's just we have different words for the same geometric objects, and those objects are proportional. Right? In math class, we have proportions and inverse, right, inverses or inversely proportional. But proportionality is this overall preservation of geometric structure regardless of scale, evidenced in mathematics by factorials. But in reality, you go look at a picture of an atom or the picture of the black hole, or I think there might be new ones now, but when we started this, there was just one, but it's the same thing. And it's just, you're just seeing that proportionality scale. What is really small and what is really big is not a meaningful domain of mathematical or physical difference. And so that's kind of like the biggest thing, right? Quantum mechanics, there's something different about being really small. There isn't. Provably there isn't. Well, again, small is not big. Everything is unique, but the domain, this proportionality and limitation of what you can interact with through measurement, through perception, it all scales, it's all proportional. In the same way you go into basic geometry class, here are similar triangles. Similarity preserves proportionality. And that is just true. It's one of those things where it's like, throughout the history and philosophy of physics, people are like, this is so different, they're really small and they're really big, and it's just like starting point one, it's not. It just isn't. And so that was our little introduction for topology is completely categorized, completely classified as surface, right? Surface area. And then you have surface charge physically, electrons moving is electricity. So that is what I wanted to start, geometry, topology's relationship, and now going through derivation steps as always. What is chronology to dichotomy? Again, this physical stabilization of this opposition, one thing inverts. Is it, right, radiation pulses. Radiation doesn't propagate. Radiation doesn't move through. Mass moves and radiation's around, right? That's what waves is, radiation. And so, but that's again, big conceptualization of like, again, like light moving or radiation. It's radiation is the right word, but radiation moving. But just the initial stabilization. And then I have the conceptualization of your TV. Static on your TV, it centralizes, it consolidates, it preserves, it stabilizes into resonance. It resolves. And so does it make sense to say two things like moved away from one another or just stabilized from this background radiation into mass? And then it's stabilized in a way, this fundamental unit of charge, density is definite, And then you just can't probe that because all things are physical things. In the same way nothing can cut diamond or whatever. I'm sorry, someone's just in my tooth. But it's just like a physical limitation of density is definite, and all other things you can't like probe it. And that's what physical stabilization is of all of the things around you. But what was the chronology of that dichotomy? Did it one thing, then two things, then three things? Makes very clear sense, all right? But just, was it one thing, or did it just, again, that's where I have for that conceptualization right now. Candidates are candid. So this was another, that D to the T. This was another word that stayed with me since childhood. Definitely like candid camera, when it's like, yeah, everything's like sentience is aware of other sentience. More so than people know publicly, profoundly. But that word, just the D to the T, candidate, right? Candid. Candidates are candid, even though they're definitely not. Accreditate, candidate. Aggregate, aggravate. Sensuality aggravates. Sensuality is aggravationality. Aggravation incenses. Candid is genuine, candid is authentic. Sensuality is authenticality. Authenticality, authoritality. Sensuality is authority. And so even continuing in this, going back to the, mass stabilizing from radiation, right? That is what happened. Right? What was I going to say? I had something else I was going to say. Now I just lost it again, but it moves quick. I'll come back to it when it pops back up. Lenient, salient, right? Salient is built on lean. Sensuality is salientality. Prime is salient. Salient, lean. Leaning, tilts. Sensuality, leans. Lean, lean. And then I have a little 2x2 matrix, the EA and the IE. Again, what is iterating? It seems like the vowels should be the base, should be stabilized, should be not moving. Again, just pointing out any intuition, but all of this resolves with the final demonstration, which I've already done with speciality, so it's not like these analytical tools are not out there known. I'm literally just not looking them up, because I'm the one who derived them. Yeah, moving on. Salient, sapien. Sensuality is sapienality. Sensuality penalizes. Censorship is penalty. Penalty is punishment. What is probability to problem? Proportionality, probability. The linguistic form of probability is prefix ability, which we've shown that complete chronological iteration. But yeah, I keep wanting to go, moving on. Problem, emblem. Are sequences continuous? We have these discrete things, again, mass stabilizing from energy. They're sufficiently independent, right? Nothing is touching, but everything is connected. Are annuities continuous? Is continuity a spectrum? Another big word we have the visible light spectrum. Sean Carroll's also on a spectrum. I think it's a different one. But is continuity a spectrum? Emphasizing conceptually, what is this word spectrum? It's close to species. Sanity is logical. Sanity is essential. That's our most recent logical renormalization. Logic is essential. What is sensitivity to sanity? Sane makes sense. Is sanity tense? Tension strains. Filtering strains. Sensuality strains. Straining exhausts. Exhausting fatigues. Is fatigue unique? Again, emphasizing this placement of the G in the Q, the shape relationships, emphasizing them in context, right? All of these, this kind of looks like, again, Emmanuel Macroni's language land. Baguette land might be unique. Fatigue. Quoi est fatigue? Oui, oui. Or way. Is fatigue unique? Fatigue tires. Sensuality is tiring. What is tiring to timing? Emphasizing the R to the M. What is tiring to expiring? Sensuality expires. What does expiration require? What is expiration to explanation? Sensorality is explanatory. Sensorality is planetary. A planet is a magnet, and emphasizing the word forms directly. Magnet agent. So this is another big word that it's just like, what happens is, again, everyone's like 12 years old mentally, but new generations come, right? Once you get, I don't know, I'm about 33 almost. And so I don't know what age, like again, the younger generations produce verbiage. Who is young? Age is just a number. People that are like thinking, actively trying to do new things. Typically that presents in business. And then you have that produces concepts or problems or inconsistencies to resolve. And then people use verbiage to describe that. And so now we have artificial intelligence, we have assistants, we have agents, we have agentic. It's like an agent. My sports agent, my administrative assistant, they're my agent. It's my AI agent, it's agentic. And it's just immediately a fundamentally ontological word. And so sensorality is agenticality. And again, that the sequencing of the syllability to the pronunciation is what directly immediately formed, presented in recent history. Agentic. I would say within the past like couple months, but agenticality. And so that's this is what I'm saying, like etymology doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Like that's what it means. And like that's solidified what it means. I was going to say something else as well, but moving along. Sensorality is gentle. What is solution to absolution? Again, we've been saying a couple things. Language is consistent. You can understand me following along. I would say that's more so conceptualization is consistent. Well, I would say both. Language, the association of meaning to sound, putting them in order, that is grammar, that reflects chirality to a full extent. But then we have stuff like solute is not the base of a solution, but it is. 7 is not even, but it is, right? And so what is consistent? We have discrete things, that's our syllability, sound to meaning, can't break that whatsoever. Solution, the syllability is base solute. The base of a solution in chemistry class is a solvent. The word 7 literally is the word even with an S in front, but the number 7 is not even. What is consistent? What is inconsistent? Absolution forgives. Sensorality is for giving. Sensorality is for caring. For those watching and following along from the whole time, that logic extends the caring is cool. It's cool to care was one of the first titles I had in language litigation and integration. Caring gives a fuck. Crashing out gives no fucks, right? We should stop the crash out. This concept of like, oh, my life sucks, I'm just gonna go do some random stupid bad shit. Just do some like not random kind of directed good shit. Go on an adventure, learn a new skill, try something fun. Don't just go do random violence. That is like the dumbest shit you could ever do. Crashing out gives no fucks. It is cool to care. What is crashing out to cashing in? You can't cash in if you crash out. It's science, kids. It's science. Insanity lashes out. Lash, lavish. Sensorality splashes. Making it rain, splashes. So kind of back to what I was saying is this younger generations produce the verbiage, but the younger generation biologically certainly, but then also again the people in the mix in the game of like trying to solve problems, typically in the business world. But then you always have repetition, right? Fashion repeats. What people say is splashing, like spending a lot of money. Like literally, again, I'm not that old. People were saying was making it rain like a decade ago. And so it's like there's just new generations talking about the same things, and we have kind of new technology which forces new situations. But it's like, again, this periodicity of 7, right? I still haven't looked at my email, but if I remember correctly, it was like May of 2018 when I was in Philadelphia. That's when we had speciality is, the finalization. And so it's just like, we have this overall process of conceptualization, like recycling or iterating, again, every about 7 years. because that consolidation of the infinity sign in 8, I didn't pick that, you didn't pick that. We have 7 days in the week. The blastocyst, zygote to blastocyst, I think it's that one, is 7 divisions. But so that's another, again, meiosis and mitosis. That's direct linguistic biological inversion. So that's what I'm saying, radiation to mass stabilizing, right? The splitting of a cell. That's one thing going to two things, but is that like, it didn't propagate. I don't like the word propagation in physics at all. Right? Radiation pulses. You go look at a light, it's pulsing. Yeah, okay, so where we're at. Making it rain splashes. but again, we're demonstrating, we're moving along. Which is to what is to which? What is sensation to isolation? Sensorality is solationality. Solution, isolation. Solationality is sensationality. Peace is solace, and that is a natural definition. Topology, right, that's like the Greek Polaris, Solaris, that's always a direct one that I hit a bunch in all of our months, or like the Greek gods or whatever, or the Roman adaptations. But everyone says the same shit. Like, that is overabundantly apparent. But topology is surface area, top is above, topology is surface shape. And so now, the fundamental theorem of geometry, topology bubbles up. Sensorality bubbles up. Connecting like the phrasing, right? This came up, this popped up, this bubbled up, right? But it's true. Like, all of surface is like bubble. It's like bubble wrap. It's like goosebumps. It's like you go look at the sidewalk thing that you're walking on, and it's a little bubble. Everything in electrons, a little sphere. Because of distance and stabilization, everything acts like a sphere locally. Everything acts like, when we look out and see a planet and it looks like a sphere, like all of the little electrons that make up you are so small that they look like spheres to each other. And so we have that renormalization physically where it's just, right, then we have the shell theorem. That's precisely where the shell theorem comes. If you're outside the radius or the shell, everything's like a point particle. That's true. Overall, that's just like a physical, again, the size to space is just, everything acts like a sphere to one another. But topology bubbles up. That's a huge one. Geometry contains topology. Geometry is shape. What is geometry shape? Geometry is geographic. Geometry is graphic, right? Geometry graphs. Geometry is graphicality. Are letters graphs? What is a graph? Huh, that PH is like TH. Huh. But letters, right, are based on let. Why do mathematicians say let X equal Y? Let this equal that. Nah, Terrence Tao, nah, Ed Witten. It is what it is, bro. That's the structure of where you start. And then you cast out your net, you let your net go wide and spread your seed, you dispense it, and then you pull it all back in for your proof. Right? Proofing is reduction, showing this consistency to completion. And so, but we've 100% produced why mathematicians say let this equal that. Let letters. We can state the fundamental theorem of emotion. How's Jordan Peterson doing? Insanity is madness. Shout out to Stephanie Link. Again, conceptualization is consistent. I sit here and interact with the world all day. What you're thinking, I can literally feel provably, then I just write it down. And what we're trying, the problems, there's only so many problems to solve. There's only so much inefficiency that is forced to the forefront of sentience that we can put into sentences. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just writing it all down. But the information comes from everybody. And it cycles. It iterates. It repeats. To some extent, right? History rhymes, but it doesn't repeat. But insanity is mad. You mad, bro? Like, what is madness? Right? These negative emotions. Insanity is madness. Again, overall, just developing, showing you consistency, still making a YouTube video, but arriving at this working definition, what is sensorality, by direct iteration. That has a finite set of syllables. Those syllables go places. Conceptually, Sensuality is sanity. That's our last renormalization. And then insanity is mad, right? So sanity is happy. But again, just overall progressing our linguistics, and then the result will speak for itself. Again, it's outside of me. And so I'm just doing the analysis. And so my rights continue to be violated. Why somebody can't pay me a little bit of money is profoundly disgusting. That is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.